Hello and welcome to Soulful Strategies with me, Kathleen Amy. This is the space where strategy meets soul, where we talk about building a business that actually honors your energy, your values, and the season of life that you're in. Today's episode is a little bit of a tender one, maybe, and we're basically going to explore what happens when we start to become our business rather than a separate being, and how we can turn that around and gently return to ourselves. So let's get into it. I found working with many solo business owners over the past 7 years that there's this kind of quiet undercurrent or belief that so many of us carry. And I say us because I have definitely done this in the past. And it's that when we work for ourselves, and especially when we're building something from our heart and our soul, and it feels very much like our life's purpose, we can begin to think that we are actually our business. So we're not keeping it separate. We're not seeing ourselves as a separate being and our business as a separate kind of entity. We're meshing it all together and we're really kind of putting our business as us. And I think this is especially prevalent in the solo business space where you and I, because I am also a solo business, like we are wearing all the hats. We are doing most of the things. We don't generally hire people as an employee. We might outsource to contractors or bring people in for periods of time or seasons in our business, or maybe we might have a VA ongoing, but it's really us and we are the ones doing all the things, wearing all the hats. And so it can become very easy to start to see ourselves as our business, and that our business is a representation of us and us wholly, like as a whole person, as a whole being. Now, of course, we pour so much of ourselves into what we create. We pour our energy, our values, our care, our voice. And as a solo business owner myself, I know that your business really needs to reflect all of those things. It needs to reflect your energy. It needs to reflect your values. It needs to reflect your care and how you show up in the world and your voice, or it's just not sustainable, right? But at the same time, I want to gently remind you and invite you to think about this today, that you are actually not your business. Your business is a part of your life and you are a part of your business, but it is not and it should not be your whole identity. Okay? It should not be your whole identity. Just like if you worked in a 9-to-5 for another business, your role as a being should not be defined and your worth should not be defined by being an employee in that business or the role that you have. The same goes for your business. Okay? It is definitely not your worth, and it is not the only place in your life where you are allowed to be valuable or where your creativity should shine. There should be places for you as a being outside of your business for those things to flourish. And I'd love to share a little story from my own journey. You would know if you've listened along for a while, or maybe you're new here, welcome. Or if you know me, that I carry the channel 1333 in human design, which means I love stories. It's how I kind of navigate the world, and people share their stories with me, and I kind of understand things through stories. So I'd love to share a little bit of my story and how this kind of idea of you not being your business felt for me. So when I first began working for myself back in 2018, I really carried this deep kind of almost invisible undercurrent or urgency to kind of prove that I could do it, that I was not just leaving teaching to escape, that I was building something worthy. And the way that I measured that worth was through my productivity, through my income, through my ability to be useful to other people and not useful to myself, which is just another fast track to burnout again, which again is another story for another time. But I put all of these measurements to show and prove to myself, and perhaps to others as well, that I was worthy and I was useful, which meant that when things were quiet, when there were seasons of more space or perhaps uncertainty or that in between that we all go through in business and life, I didn't know who I was. I couldn't place myself in the world because my business wasn't doing XYZ. So who was I without that? And I wonder if you felt that too, or you could reflect on times where that has happened to you, or perhaps you've seen that in others, because I know working with many, many solo business owners, predominantly women, over the past 7 years in my business, that I see that. And being in the online business support space as a Soulful virtual assistant, I get a really good insight and a unique insight into the behind the scenes of people's businesses and the behind the scenes of how they run, and also oftentimes them as a person and how they're weaving that into their business and life. So I know that I'm definitely not the only person who has done this or experienced this, but I know it's often something that we don't talk about. So that's a little bit of my story, but here's what I've learned since that. And there's 3 main things that I would love to talk about that I've learned. The first is that your business is not and should not be your entire self-worth. It is something you offer to the world. It may be part of your life's purpose, distilled into your service through your business, but it is not something that you are, okay? You can show up fully and lovingly without needing every result in your business to mean something about you as a being, okay? It's really dangerous and really not good for your health and well-being on all levels, your spiritual health, your physical health, your mental health, to be putting all of your self-worth into one thing that you can't always control. You can't always control the outcomes of your business. You can plan, you can set your goals, you can do your SWOT analysis, all things I've talked about in previous seasons and episodes of this podcast. Go back and have a listen. But you really can only control what you can do, and everything outside of yourself is not something that is in the realm of your control. So putting your self-worth in that is really not healthy and is quite, in my opinion, dangerous for your well-being. The second thing is detaching your identity from your business allows you to make clearer decisions. Because when you're over-identified with your business, every shift, every seasonal change, everything that happens in your business can start to feel personal. But when you create some space between you and your work, it becomes easier to receive feedback, to pivot, to pause, or to evolve without creating a whole story about what it means for you as a person, as a being. And the third thing is that you are actually allowed to take up space as a being outside of your business. Your creativity, your rest, your softness, all of that is sacred too and deserves to be honored with its own space and its own time outside of your business. You don't exist to serve your business or other people, even if that is part of your life's purpose and how you feel your role is in the world, and you're doing that through your business. All those other parts of yourself deserve the same love and care that you pour into everyone else through your business and that you pour into your business. So your business exists then to support the life you're creating, not the other way around. And that life is allowed to be big. It's allowed to be messy. It's allowed to be multidimensional and full of things that have nothing to do with your offer or your Instagram grid or your TikTok or your strategy or anything else or your clients. It can just be for you. And that is so important. So I'd like to offer you a gentle reframe around this. And that is that instead of asking, how do I become my brand? And there's a whole kind of thing that we could go into about personal branding and all the things. But instead of asking yourself, how do I become my brand? And how do I show up as my brand? Ask yourself, how can my brand honor who I already am? And instead of asking, how can I prove my worth through my business, we're going to ask ourselves, how can my business support the life I want to live, not replace it, and not the other way around? So a little reflection for you as we kind of wrap up this episode. I'd love to invite you to take a moment today and ask yourself, where have I been tying my worth to my business outcomes? And what would it feel like to loosen that thread even just a little bit? Maybe that looks like pausing before you reply to a difficult email. Maybe it's not rushing to explain yourself when something changes. Or maybe it's simply naming just to yourself, that your worth was never meant to be measured by your output and was never meant to be defined by your business or its success. So thanks for being here with me today. If this episode stirred something in you, I'd love for you to take a breath and just notice that. You don't have to act on it straight away. Just notice it. And you can find the blog version of this episode and more support at kathleenamy.com.au, or come say hi on Instagram or TikTok. I'm loving TikTok at the moment, so come say hi on there. It's at kathleenamy.virtual, and I will see you in the next episode of Soulful Strategies.